Welcome back to Rich Dad Stockcast. I'm your host, Denney, and today we're talking about a window most investors misunderstand: the early part of the year, whether it's the first week of January or a few weeks in. This is still the most important time to reset, reposition, and get intentional about how you invest. Most people are already reacting to headlines. Smart investors are still setting the foundation. And to break that down, I've got Rich Dad expert Andy Tanner with me. And before we dive in, make sure you go to stockcastbonus.com. Grab your free investing tools. If you want clarity instead of chaos this year, that's where you start. Andy, great to have you back.
Del, great to be with you. What a great topic, and timely as we're closing out Q4 here pretty quick.
I love the beginning of the year. It is a great time to reset. It's just a fresh start. But speaking of fresh start, stockcastbonus.com, great resources in there. What do our listeners receive when they go there?
Yeah, go to stockcastbonus.com. In fact, speaking of the end of the year, a great way I share my regimen. That's actually fortuitous to talk about it here. It always is applicable to every show we do, but go there and download the ebook for sure, and read that before the quarter closes out. Because if you're the type of person who likes to do the New Year's resolution and say I'm going to make 2026 the best year, there's invaluable information. I share with you my process, what my wife and I do. And it's changed my life. So if it can change a guy like my life, might be able to change someone like yours too. So it's free, and go download it, stockcastbonus.com.
There we go. I love that. Make 2026 your best year. I always think about that as I start a year. How can I make 2026 my best year yet? So I think that's a great start right there. Speaking of starts, let's get into our topic here. My question for you is this, Andy. Why is the early part of the year such a critical positioning window for investors?
Well, I look at it in two ways. We'll probably get into some regimens that help you personally. Why can't you just start in April, or in November? What is it? Why is there something about the end of the year? Well, if you move away from personal development goals and kind of that cutoff, there's really a lot of practical things that happen at the end of the year. Number one on my list is there's a difference between having an accountant and a tax advisor. And when people say, who's my accountant? I'll say, well, Tom Wheelwright is my tax advisor. And the reason is accountants keep track of what happened. Tax advisors help you plan what's going to happen. And tax planning, as opposed to accounting, you can, without even further discussion, you can tell already tax planning is better than accounting. They're similar, but I see them as very different. Well, as you're closing out the end of the year, you're going to have a tax cutoff. And so as you plan out how to close that out, it's also very important to plan out what you're going to do in 2026 from a tax standpoint. If you're planning on selling anything or planning on acquiring things or needing tax help, you can't go in April or, I'm usually in the fall. I don't do it in the spring, but it's very difficult to make adjustments in hindsight after the fact. So I would start on the practical side. Number one, Tom Wheelwright says it really well. There's no better way to permanently improve your cash flow than to reduce your taxes. And it's the biggest expense, it's the biggest potential expense a person could have, more than their house, more than their car, more than any other liability they put money into. Taxes are a wealth killer. They really are. And so, and the richer you get, the more people go, well, they don't need all that money. Let's just go take it. It blows my mind. I see this guy in New York they got, and, guys, I'm not calling them bad people, just like a Bernie Sanders type guy says, well, they don't need all that. I'm like, you're really good at just taking money from one person and saying, give it to the other. I mean, it's just an interesting mindset to me that a guy would come up and do that. So the fact that when you make a couple bucks, tell you what, you've really got to figure out how to hang on to some of that. If you want a legacy for your family and you feel like you've worked to build something, tax planning is the top of the list for the end of the year. That's one.
So that's one. What else should investors, before you like set a plan, set a goal, what else should you review before making new moves?
So, excuse me. I chop my year up like anybody else. Excuse me, a little frog in my throat. I chop my year up like everybody else. For example, I have a lot of weekly meetings in my life. I have a meeting we'll talk about with my spouse, which is the most important one every week. Most important meeting of the week for sure. And then I have some with my team, as a business owner, and those are weekly. Every quarter or every month, we do another round of option writing. I still write mine options. Some people do the day long stuff. That's become very popular, that casino. But you have monthly of options. Well, then you have quarterly. And from a stock investing standpoint, there's something called a 10Q, where the SEC requires quarterly reports so investors like you and I can look. Well, there's a real big one, and it doesn't come out now. It comes out staggered, but it's a 10K, and the 10K is a yearly report. So it's really important to look and project and see those chunks, because they're going to tell you what they're going to do. So doing your own 10K, right? I had a friend of mine. I don't think he invented this phrase. He may have. He's a guy, Marshall. He often says, when performance is measured, performance improves, and what you focus on expands. And I'm sure he didn't coin that phrase, but it's if you're going to measure something, you're going to have units per time, dollars per hour, rent per month, and what was your growth over the quarter, quarter over quarter and year over year. So it's just a great delineation to have measurements and do your own 10K and say, how did we do, and did we meet our goals? And it's just as good a time as any, because it's the end of the year. It just makes sense. Do your own 10K. Do your own evaluation, of your, we have stockcastbonus.com. And at stockcastbonus.com, we have this book called The Power of Six. And it is powerful. And why six? Well, I don't usually introduce the statement of cash flows. That's a third of the financial statement. But on a personal finance level, it's very important to have the other two parts, which is an income statement and a balance sheet. Think about this. Income, expense, net income, which some people call cash flow. You take your income, you take your expense, and you net that out and say, what's the net income? And then you have assets, liabilities, and net worth. So net income, net worth. Those are six numbers. Well, if you are keeping track of those weekly, which is my recommendation, Robert does it. Robert Kiyosaki did it with Betty the Bookkeeper monthly. Marcy and I do it weekly, actually. At the end of the year, you want to be able to look at the year that's done and say, did I achieve my goals? And what wealth building really is about is financial statements. You have the sovereign one of the United States, which we care about. You have if you own Apple, you care about their six numbers. But it's called the gap total, the generally accounting principles total. You really care. The most important financial statement in your life is yours, and to know how to read it, build it, and most importantly, improve it. And so as I look at those six numbers in this ebook called The Power of Six, what it really tells you is how to look at that and say, which of these numbers do I need to move to get to where I want to go? And what activities can I engage in to manipulate those numbers? And that is an approach that is extremely effective, as you call it, and it's the power of those six numbers, the ability to know what they are, read them, and then manipulate them. So the end of the year is a fabulous time to look at 2025s and say, all right, when we set out at the end of 2024, we said, this is what we wanted to look like. How do we do? Because when performance is measured, performance is improved. There's something in business, and my business partner, Jeff, who's just I mean, who's better? Nobody. He is a master of key performance indicator. And those measurements week over week matter, quarter over quarter matter, and year over year matter. And we measure those KPIs, and those are the knobs and dials that you twist to adjust a key performance to see if you're performing well. Their key, their performance. Well, on a personal financial statement level, the key performance indicators start with those 6 numbers. There's others, but they rest and land and change in those 6: income, expenses. The book is really a fascinating journey. I want to make less income. I want my expenses to go higher. How is that? Well, when I look at income, I don't want to make as much active income. My active income is really, 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 really down from where it was. In fact, I'm trying to think if I had any active income this last year from like giving speeches. Because I used to take those opportunities all the time. Someone say, "Hey, here's $10,000 to go give a speech," or whatever it was, right? And say, "Yeah, I'll take 10 grand for a weekend." But as I looked at it, I says that I don't want to work for money. I don't want to have to depend on that. So I actually set a goal to say I want to shrink my active income. Okay, why would I want? And I want to increase my passive from assets, right? From real things like real estate and things like stocks and businesses and things like that. Expenses I want to go up every year because they're going to anyway. Just well plan for it. And the quality of your life is a function of your expenses. In other words, if I have great health care, if I have great food, if I have great entertainment, if I have great transportation, if I have great homes, all of those things, I want abundance. I want first class tickets. I'm a big dude. I don't want to sit. I don't want to do that. That poor guy sitting. I walk down. If I were to walk down, and I haven't flown coach in a while, but if I ever did, I can imagine the guy like, not him. Please don't let him be next to me. So got to be kind to those guys and stay out of there. Stay out of their hair.
There you go. Side note, I remember years ago I was in first class and I saw you walk on the plane and I had first class and you didn't. And I felt so bad. I wish I would have gave you that seat. I just looked at you like, oh my gosh, what was I think? So I apologize years later for not giving you that seat.
The last time I flew a coach, this is a digression, but it's a fun story. Last time I flew coach was probably the year Mark Eaton died. And Mark Eaton was a 7'4" center, all-star actually for the Utah Jazz. And I was in San Diego to visit our mutual friend Than. And I was flying home from San Diego, and all of a sudden Mark Eaton walks up to the ticket counter, kind of distressed. I'm like, "What's going on?" That's Mark Eaton. So I get in first line. They let him on early for some reason. I thought something's going on. So usually I'm the last guy on the plane because I don't want to sit there. But this time I got in the front of the line. And I go on the plane first, and I look down, and they bumped him out of his first class seat somehow. And he physically couldn't do it. I'm watching him try to do it. So I go back there, and I don't know Mark. I played basketball with him one time at the Desert Gym, and he set a back pick on me that I haven't recovered from yet, but I'm sure he didn't remember it. And so I go up, and I says, "Hey, Mark," I says, "this is a tough one. I got one up front. Why don't we trade?" He says, "Oh, you're not a small guy either." I says, "Look, for me, this is uncomfortable. For you, it's not possible." He says, "Sir, I can't do that." And his wife said, "Mark, you take that ticket." And so Mark goes up front, and I sit down next to his wife, and I go to put my Bose headphones on so I don't bother her. I'm crammed in there like this. And I just read his book, The Four Commitments of a Winning Team. And the first commitment is do your job. The fourth commitment is protect others. And I knew those 4 commitments. Anyway, he'd done a speech on his book, and his wife was promoting his book. And I just read it. And so when I sat down, she goes, "Oh, sir, that was nice." I go, "Hey, protect others." And when I said that, she was like, "Oh my gosh." So that's the last time I flew coach. Bit of a digression, but the point is you want your expenses to go up so you don't have to fly in coach. So
there you go. I like how you pulled it full circle there. I'll wrap that in there. Well,
little digression, but a fun story,
Hey, I think we all like that. But let's do this. Let's take a quick break, listener. Whether you're listening in week 1 or week 3 of the year, this is still the moment where good decisions compound and bad habits get locked in. So when we come back, Andy's going to walk us through the specific actions investors can take right now to build momentum, manage risk, create cash flow for the rest of the year. And don't forget to visit stockcastbonus.com. Download your free tools. This is how to stop reacting and start investing with intention. Stick around. We'll be right back.
So far, it's been great. I needed a source where I could really enrich my education through stocks. I didn't really have an avenue for it, and it's helped me a lot. The simplicity has really gotten me on the track to where I enjoy the learning as well as it's really solidifying in my mind. And like, they're not just trying to sell you something, they really care about the people that are in the course, and they really do care about you and your personal goals, and what you want to do is to help you and your family and whatever your goals are in life through that. So it's really been great.
Welcome back to Rich Dad Stockcast. Andy, let's get practical. What should investors be doing right now, regardless of what time of year they just started this podcast? Maybe the year is already in motion. They might be listening to in week 3 of January. But what should investors be doing right now? Let's say it's January 1st. What do we do?
So we talked about some of the external things, 10Ks, finishing up your year, doing your own 10K, getting your tax advice, planning, all that practical stuff that just rotates around everybody else's year, right? It's just that everyone else has a calendar, so we're going to, buy into that. The Lannons, who I just love, our kids were roughly the same age, and we raised our families at the same time. The Lannons, who live in Bandera, Texas, and have great business, they wrote a book, about social capitalism, about doing good with capitalism to the social benefit. And they have a really wonderful regimen. Mine's probably not as good as theirs. Mine's similar, but they go to Hawaii every year, and they spend New Year's at Hawaii. So after Christmas, they get on a plane, they head to Hawaii, and man, their phones are off. They're untouchable. They're like on a different planet.
They're like on their own island.
They do. They, and it's not just like an hour. Okay, let's plan the year. It's almost like almost a spiritual type of retreat and ritual for them. They really care about it, and they plan out their personal development. Mm-hmm. And one of the blessings I had with traveling with all those guys for so long was the realization that wealth building, truly investing in entrepreneurship, either one, it is an exercise in personal development. And people don't want to hear it, so that's fine. I don't have to buy into it. I don't care. But the fact of the matter is, most people, they come to a channel like this one saying, well, I want to make more money. I want this. And they don't understand be, do, have. They see have and do. They say, I want to have this, so tell me what to do. I want to have this, so tell me what to do. And it's kind of interesting to have to have patience like a doctor, you got to be a doctor. To have tactical skills like a police officer, you have to be a police officer. So becoming is just tied to it. And the beginning of the year is just a wonderful time to evaluate who you are, who you've become so far, and who you'd like to become. And it's made major changes in my life doing that. One year I decided I didn't want to be a public speaker anymore. I wanted to be a dad. And that changed how I spent my time. And I was writing in my journal last night, as a matter of fact, reflecting on that decision to be a dad before anything. That like not even a distant second to it. And my sons are now getting old enough. One of them flew the coop. He's in college and playing basketball. And as I watched him perform his first time away from me over this first quarter of semester of school, and watched him perform and be away from me, and get phone calls from his coach, I realized that that decision to become a father, I've made a lot of crappy decisions in my life, but that one, best choice I've ever made. That and talking my wife into staying. But So that spiritual motivation, it helps you with the business. It keeps things in perspective. You always want to be bigger than your money. And that's hard with compounding, because if you compound, the money grows exponentially. And so how do you stay bigger than your money? And what I mean by that is Bernie Madoff got to the point where he was no longer bigger than the money. The money started to wag, the tail wagged the dog. When people let money, if they can't stay bigger than their money, then the money becomes the controlling factor and they become a slave to it. And so that exponential growth of compounding, as you hit that hockey stick, it starts going like this. There's a personal development that is insane that has to happen if you want to stay bigger than your money. And it's really important. Now, some people think, well, I'd love to have that problem, right? Well, great. But that starts with becoming and always becoming and always becoming and never stopping. Graduating from school means going to the next level up, and you start again and you commence. What's the next thing? The best learning I ever did was after college. The best personal development I ever did was after I was grown. And so that time of the year, Del, it can be sacred. It can be sanctification. It can be a cleansing. You can. I have a friend who I hope he wouldn't mind me sharing this. I better not. I wouldn't want to offend him. He's of the Jewish tradition, and they have this Yom Kippur thing where one day I get this message from him where he's begging my pardon. Like, this guy, I hold him in high esteem, and he's begging my pardon. And it's a ritual of cleansing and atonement to become at one with the people you might have offended. And I had holy envy for that, and I started to practice it, even though I'm not Jewish, but I started to practice it. And when that comes around that year, it's a cleansing time. Well, this time of the year is like that for us. How did we do? And how do we want to do next year? And what do we want to achieve? And we missed some goals this year, like we do every year. If you're not missing a couple, you're probably not lofty enough, right? But we hit some too. And so that is more important than the tax advisement. You got to do the taxes. You got to do all the stuff we said in the first segment. But go to stockcastbonus.com, and I'll tell you how to change your life right now. If you happen upon this podcast, you've been watching for a while, I'll tell you a decision you can make that might be among the best you've ever made. Is go to stockcastbonus.com and download that Power 6 and learn how my wife and I do a weekly meeting and say, and I'll share one of my goals with you that was always a goal every year. We're going to do 52 of them. We did 52 of them in 2025. We're going to do 52 of them in 2026, where every Sunday at 11 a.m., we're going to look at those 6 numbers. And we're going to say, all right, how are we doing? How are we doing? We're going to pay attention and focus on changing those numbers so we can have a legacy someday that we're proud of for our kids that's bigger and bigger. And we got to help them to be bigger than the money. Or, if kids inherit money that they're not bigger than, then they got a problem. So that spiritual sanctifying, whatever you want to call it, cleansing, revamping, repenting, what do we want to do and who do we want to be in 2026? You can feel the power in it, can't you? I hope it's coming through to people. And December's a great time to do that. Get thankful around Thanksgiving and giving around Christmas and renewed for when baby New Year comes. It's a fresh start. Nothing can stop you, no matter what type of victimhoods we have, Bill. And, whether it's your health, like my wife and I have had health stuff, or whatever, everyone has something that's not fair. All of us. To have gratitude and to say, yeah, but you know what? I still have the chance to get up in the morning and learn anything I want to learn in the information age. And I can download a free book or whatever, and I can act upon the world instead of having to act upon me in some fashion. There's power in that. And this is the time of year to get that stuff done.
There we go. I love that. All right. My final question, and I kind of want to loop this back because it's something that you brought up just a little bit ago, be, do, have. I think many people, as they're setting their goals, a lot of them are thinking of the have. I want to get this, I want to get that. But there's power in the be and the do. If I also think about expanding what's possible, right? Surrounding yourself with better people, you understand that it's possible, right? I can be like that person. I admire them. I see what they're doing. How can I be better? How can I do better? How can I expand that?
It's probably a forced observation. It might be a strained observation. I might be trying to create something that's not there because I don't think the etymology works. But most people think doing is related to having, and that's true. There's a law of the harvest. What you do determines what you get. That's true. But when you think of how you act every day, another word for what you do every day is your behavior. So be is also related to have. Behavior, be and have. And so if you're going to behave or have, you got to be somebody too, right? It's what you're being. It's how you're, is he being good or is he being bad? Is he being a good boy, right? And, and so becoming, I learned that from Robert Kiyosaki, Kim Kiyosaki, and Blair Singer. And I can't remember in what order or combination that those three people taught me those three words. But I just remember just so vividly the colors, even the three different colors on the flip chart where he said be, he picked up another marker, do, picked up another have. And it was just three words. And it just has always stuck with me gratefully that I realized I was one of those guys that wanted to have first, and then I wanted to do. And that's the advice culture, Del. Tell me what to do. It's lazy. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Should I buy gold? Tell me what to do.
They're being lazy.
Yeah, that's how Wall Street makes money.
Yeah.
It's assets under management that people can't manage themselves. So they pay a fee and that's it. And so they want to be told what to do. I don't want to be told what to do. That's not freedom. Being free isn't being told what to do. That's slavery. Do this, do this. So becoming, when you look at the gap between where I am now and what my potential is, and that's an irritating gap. That's a pebble in the shoe for sure. Where you look at where you are now and where you could become, and to fulfill the measure of your creation, so to speak, to say, what's my potential? What's the max out that I can hit? Success maybe isn't, it was Earl Nightingale that said, success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. That's a great definition of success. But that also means, it might have been that you can still have gas in the tank. I was talking to my younger son about this. He's pretty smart, 4.0 student. But I looked at him and I says, son, the problem is you're measuring yourself against a 4.0. You got more in the tank than that. You should be going outside of school and because he's just not getting pushed. He's just not getting pushed to where he could be. And I'm not going to force him, but I suggested to him, I said, success is not your 4.0. That's just a measurement. If you have more in the tank than that, then who can you really become? Do you want to be a 4.0 student or do you want to be the best you can be? What is it? And for me, 2.0 was better. That was way above my pay grade. Right? Just trying to stay eligible to play basketball, right? But that's a personal thing on becoming. Is like, who can you become? You might surprise yourself. And wouldn't it be sad when we sit there in our deathbed and we look back and said, man, I didn't leave it all out on the floor. I didn't take the shots I could have taken. And I wish I'd have, trained more and shot the ball more and taken more shots and trained to earn the right to take more shots, because I could have done it. I didn't. And instead I played, Warcraft or whatever. Right. I scrolled, I Netflixed, I pursued leisure rather than becoming someone. And when you can trade a bit, and you gotta have some leisure, but when you can trade a little bit of leisure for becoming, it's a great time of year, isn't it, to do it? It's such a great topic, Del. So I've spouted off enough on it. People don't want to listen to me spout off, but yeah, go download the Power 6. You don't even have to buy it; it's free, and do it this year and just see what happens. And then come back at the end of 2026 and say, Andy, I had those 52 meetings and I became someone new. And when you look in the mirror, I think you'll be impressed of who you became in that year.
I couldn't agree more.
Teach their own.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is a great spot to end this episode on. Listener, the early part of the year isn't about predicting the future. It's about positioning yourself so you're ready for whatever comes next. And big thank you to Andy Tanner for laying out a clear, flexible playbook for us. If you want to invest with an intention, not emotion, again, go to stockcastbonus.com right now. You'll find free tools and education designed to help you build momentum, manage risk, and stay disciplined all year long. Get your meeting scheduled with your spouse if needs be. Listen, if this episode helped you, make sure you like it, subscribe, share it with someone who wants to get back in control of their investing. You're not here by accident. You're building something that most people won't. So stay smart, stay invested. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Del.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.